Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Barbara Welsh, a member of your Board of Trustees. Welcome to the Mainline Unitarian Church on this beautiful sunny morning. Thank you for joining us, those of you who are here in person, as well as our friends joining us on YouTube. And I'm sending a special welcome to any of you who are here for the first time. After the service, we have coffee hour across the atrium, and those of you who are new visitors and newcomers, please take a cup that says visitor so we can be sure to welcome you. We have a wonderful worship team this morning with Reverend John Morehouse, our senior minister, and Dawn Starr Saris Borchardt, our director of Lifespan Faith Development, and she'll lead us in the Time for All Ages. Carolyn Bright is our ministerial intern. Chris Cavalieri is our worship associate. And the talented Browns, Jody on the piano and David on his violin, will be providing our music this morning. And the MLUC choir is also singing. Thank you also to our tech team who make the sound and the video of our service possible. And who are we? At Mainline Unitarian Church, we're a liberal, inclusive religious community coming together to support each other as we seek spiritual growth, connection, and more fulfilled lives. I've been a member here for almost 50 years as I'm making my spiritual journey, and I'm so grateful to have found my community here at MLUC. I have several important announcements. The Family Promise volunteer training, originally scheduled for next Sunday, will be postponed until later in November due to an unfortunate injury to Amy Kokas, and she's our new coordinator of MLUC for Family Promise. But please sign up in the atrium with Bob Batt to help us as we host our families beginning November 5th. It's coming right up. Madeline Seiko wants you to know that the new membership dinner is on the 21st. So she encourages all new members in the last 18 months to come to our dinner. So RSVP to Madeline. And just a reminder after the service, we're now returning our name badges to the carousels again. And I'm going to make a special announcement requesting that we do wear our name tags. We have new members, we have new staff, and we'll all get to know each other sooner if we wear our name tags. So now David Brown has an announcement.
Well, good morning, everyone. It is an absolute joy to be addressing you for the first time as your acting choir director. I have just a couple of, thank you very much. You all are wonderful. I have just a couple announcements on behalf of the choir. If you like what you hear this morning, or what you've been hearing for, in some cases, years, we'd like for you to join us. And I intend for this to be the first of what will be a long-standing tradition of me pestering you to come join our ensembles. We meet every Thursday night at 7 p.m. for rehearsals. We perform about twice a month. All are welcome, whether you have experience singing or not. We have a rock-solid group of fine musicians who will help bring you up to speed. If you are an adult, you are welcome, which begs the next question. What if I'm not an adult? I see a lot of folks out here who might not qualify, which is why we have a multi-generational choir. We are striking up the multi-gen choir for our Thanksgiving service, which will be the Sunday before Thanksgiving, November 19th. We will be rehearsing right here after services beginning on November 5th, which is a Sunday, Sunday the 5th, Sunday the 12th, and then a morning rehearsal before the performance on the 19th. So all are welcome to the multi-generational choir. I now want to make a quick announcement on behalf of the Interim Music Task Force that if any of you out here, any of you listening on the internet, if you play an instrument, if you sing, and you'd be interested in sharing your music with us during a Sunday morning service, we are trying to include more and more of the congregation, so please come find me, email me. My email address is davidbrown@mluc.org, or find any of the members of our music task force. That includes Sam Levine over in the tech booth, Mary Stromquist in the choir, Michael Zink, our chair, Tina Adams in the choir as well. Please approach us if you have any interest in performing and accompanying hymns. We want to include you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, David. Now I have some really good news. Our auctioneer, Ron Rose, is healing, and he will be here for the November 11th auction, along with Joanne, our dynamic auction duo. Thank you to everyone who's offered something. We have some great items in our auction. And be sure to get your bid number if you haven't done it already. And the way you do that is to go on our website. But we have auction people here at a table in the atrium, so any questions, please see them after the service. So now we're going to have a short video.
Shine on, harvest moon, up in the sky. Hi, I didn't see you there. I'm Pat Jordan, and with me on piano is our own Wolfgang Jaeger, and we are getting ready for MLUC's annual auction fundraiser. This year's theme is Harvest Moon. Perhaps you've seen the decorations in the atrium. As many of you know, the annual auction is our church's single biggest fellowship and fundraising event of the entire year. All the proceeds go toward the church's many programs and helps fund social action. It's a big boost to MLUC's overall operating budget. Together, let's bring in a record harvest. This year, our goal for each and every member or household of the congregation is to get involved. The perfect way to get this effort rolling is to go to the church's homepage, mluc.org, and find the church auction link. On the auction page, you can register by purchasing a $20 bid number. Then just go to the auction catalog where you can see the wide range of great offerings. Of course, there would be no auction without the incredible array of donated items, experiences, and services. Think about how you can provide your skills, labor, or share a crafting event with folks. And you can offer to host maybe a fellowship meal, a potluck supper perhaps. Once again, the auction this year will be in two parts. First, the silent auction online will begin Saturday, November 4th, and run up to Saturday, November 11th. You can easily bid on items online and get alerts when there is a higher bid. The real fun begins on Saturday, November 11th at 6 p.m., right here in the main meeting room, with live auction emceed by the extraordinary Ron and Joanne Rose duo. This really is a congregation-wide effort. Last year, we raised over $35,000, and this year, along with the great fun and fellowship, we look forward to making it even more of a success. It's going to be a wonderful time, for sure. We're looking forward to seeing you all there Saturday, November 11th at 6 p.m. Oh, now, please excuse me while Wolfgang and I get back to the rehearsal. So shine on, harvest moon.
So now please silence your devices, and together we'll say our mission statement. Together, we transform lives through love, service, and our welcoming faith.
The words for our chalice lighting this morning come to us from Kimberly Ann Tomzak Carlson. We are a people of memory. As inheritors of our ancestors' legacy, we hold their stories tenderly, gleaning wisdom from diverse journeys, united in hope for the future. Guide us to trust in love as we kindle this flame together. Our call to worship today comes to us from Leah Ongiri. Here we are together, each facing our different human tasks, or maybe the same central one, to embrace the lessons life delivers, to discern and respond as we grow, to refuse harm and cherish flourishing. May we know ourselves as vessels of infinite possibility, holders of each other's heartaches and tales of joy alike, weavers of one story in which we each have our part. And now I invite you to rise in body or spirit as we sing our opening hymn, number 131, Love Will Guide Us.
Love may have gotten waylaid by me on your way in the door, asking what seemed like a random question. And I sort of ran out of time, so a lot of you, I didn't actually explain why I was asking you the random question either. I was asking you the question because we have together, all those people who I accosted, have created a communal poem called Where We're From. It's a little bit like a Mad Lib, but Mad Libs are supposed to be funny, and this isn't supposed to be funny, although it's okay if you laugh, but it's just not deliberately weird the way a Mad Lib is. And this is a poem based on the work of George Ella Lyon, who's an educator and poet whose work has been used a lot. Like several of my kids have had this as an assignment in some educational setting or another. But I thought it'd be good for today because it's a way of getting at what our story is as a congregation, as people, without getting into every little nitty-gritty detail. So here's the poem that you helped me create for us. We are from coffee mugs, from Osprey and Legos. We are from the house that's messy with lots of toys, cozy, open, where I see my siblings. We are from roses, silky and spiky. We're from sitting at the dining table and using the word thee. From Timothy and Dee. We're from reading and dancing in the kitchen. From clean your room and put your iPad away. We're from Methodism and not believing any of it. We're from Beaver Dam and British Isles, avocados, ice cream. From my great-grandfather being the first person to drive a Model T across frozen Lake Michigan. From driving 7,417.1 miles across the country. We're from the memories in a cabinet in our living room because they make us happy. That's our poem. I invite children to go to their classes with me now.
Go now in peace. May your spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
Here at MLUC, following Reverend Sonia Betancourt's request that we live our values aloud and not alone, we donate half of our weekly collection to an organization serving the community through our offertory outreach program. Safe Harbor of Chester County provides housing, food, and access to support services in a structured environment for homeless single women and men in Chester County. At Safe Harbor, the community is the village, and it takes many hands and hearts to serve individuals facing homelessness in Chester County. You're going to see some information on our screen if you'd like to make a donation electronically at home or cashless donation here. The offering will now be greatly received.
of community is our ritual of personal support and sharing. We share joys and sorrows, believing that we're healed not in isolation but in community. After each candle is lit, please join me in saying, "We hold you in our hearts." We light a candle for World Infant and Pregnancy Loss Awareness Day. For all those parents who are grieving, whether your loss was recent or decades ago, we bear witness to your grief and we hold you in our hearts. Ann Bear Clark asks us to light a candle of concern and care for Suzanne Solomon. Suzanne is newly diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. For Suzanne and her family, we hold you in our hearts. We light a candle of deep condolence for Cynthia Corboy's daughter-in-law, Allison Corboy, who died as a result of falling down the stairs at home on October 9th. We hold Cynthia, Allison's husband Michael, and the rest of the family in our hearts. A member asked that we light a candle of healing for all those in the vice of addiction, caught in the revolving door of emergency rooms and rehabs. For all those who struggle with addiction, we hold you in our hearts. We light a candle of strength and gratitude for the loved ones reeling from the impact of the disease of addiction, as well as for the professionals who work every day to support folks in rehab, healing, and recovery. For all who love, hurt, and heal, we hold you in our hearts. And we light a candle of joy and empowerment for all who have chosen a life through recovery, reconnecting with family, friends, colleagues, and a better life. For all who choose life through sobriety, we hold you in our hearts. Ellen Youngdahl asks us to light a candle of healing over hate and judgment. May we hold in our hearts all who live in fear, violence, and oppression. For both the oppressors and the oppressed, we hold you in our hearts. Lee Daster asks us to light a candle of joy for the very satisfying visit with her Southern family with whom they have long been estranged. For Lee and Russie and your families, we hold you in our hearts. Norma Winther asks us to please light a candle of joy for the birth of her first great-granddaughter. On October 10th, Norma's granddaughter Chloe and her husband Luis welcomed to the world Ada Winther Gonzalez. For Ada, Chloe, Luis, Norma, and the Winther and Gonzalez families, we hold you in our hearts. And lastly, we light a candle of celebration and joy, and if he's in this room, embarrassment, for Rich Fritzen, whose 70th birthday is today. Never more have I wished that Caroline was doing this and could sing you through that than me. Our reflective reading today is an excerpt from a TED Talk. And the TED Talk and article is called The Danger of a Single Story by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. So the excerpt begins. And that is how to create a single story. Show a people as one thing, as only one thing, over and over again, and that's what they become. It's impossible to talk about the single story without talking about power. There is a word, an Igbo word, that I think about whenever I think about power structures of the world, and it's Incale. It's a noun that loosely translates to be greater than another. Like our economic and political worlds, stories too are defined by the principle of Incale. How they are told, who tells them, when they're told, how many stories are told, are really dependent on power. Power is the ability not just to tell the story of another person, but to make it the definitive story of that person. The Palestinian poet Mourid Margouti writes that if you want to dispossess a people, the simplest way to do it is to tell their story, and to start with secondly. Start the story with the arrows of the Native Americans and not with the arrival of the British, and you have an entirely different story. Start the story with the failure of the African state and not with the colonial creation of the African state, and you have an entirely different story. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Caroline. Thank you, David and Jody. It's so nice to hear the choir sing again, isn't it? Just gorgeous. Thank you, choir. And isn't it nice to see a third of the congregation leave after the story? I don't know if you've been noticing that or not, but there are a lot of kids that walk out of this room. And that's a good thing. I invite us into a time of meditation and reflection, a time truly when I ask you to close your eyes and put your feet on the floor. Breathe in deeply together. Breathe out. And on the shadow that are the eyelids we see through, let us ask ourselves what dance is there. What images are fleeing through your eyes and into your brain, or from your brain into your eyes? Are they telling you a story? Are they showing you an image of something you saw yesterday or today about the horrible violence in the Middle East? The terrible war in the Ukraine? Are they bringing us moments of recollection and joy when we see certain colors and remember a time in our life, perhaps not long ago, when we were truly happy? What images dance on your eyelids? Spend just a few moments breathing softly and watching those images come and go, called back to this room with the sound of the bell. Long before I developed claustrophobia and generalized anxiety, I have no idea where that came from, I went splunking. Anybody been splunking? Cave dwelling, dropping down in ropes into dark caverns that are closed and very scary. I was in my early 40s with a young family, and we were on vacation in West Virginia, which has some of the most beautiful caves in the world. We stopped at Lost World Caverns. Anybody been to the Lost World Caverns? Not too many. It's a good trip. It's a show cave, as they call them. These are caves with lots of things hanging off the ceiling, and I never get right which one is which from the ground to the ceiling, but you know what I mean. And they have these lighted pathways, very smooth sailing, nothing to be afraid of. Fascinating. But for an extra $20, you can go into the real dark caves and experience total darkness. My kids wanted me to go. Well, of course they did. And this reminded me of the last time my kids wanted me to go on a ride in Disney World where, what was it, Space Mountain. Anybody been on Space Mountain? They said, Dad, it's educational. And then as I'm going up the steps, I'm realizing there are these signs that say, if you have any kind of generalized anxiety or a heart condition, please turn around here. But I go up there and I get in the car, and it's a roller coaster ride through pitch darkness. So I wasn't at all crazy about this idea of crawling into a cave in total darkness, but you know, you got to do amazing things when you have kids who think it's better for you than it is for them. So away we go. We don on the overalls, the hard hats with little lights, and we're led through a narrow passage, which we had to scoot on through the belly. Now, I really wasn't sure if I liked this at all. And there was a guide in front of us, there was a guide behind us. It occurred to me this was a metaphor of either death or the birth canal. Anyway, I hoped for the birth canal. And we got to the other side and we stood up, and you looked around this cave, which was huge, 3 times the size of this room. And everyone just went silent. And one of my girls went, wow, which was saying a lot for a very dour teenager at the time. It was amazing. Just amazing, the beauty of that place. And then the guide said, we're going to experience total darkness. We all sat down on a rock and we turned off our lights one by one. The guides were the last to turn off their lights. And it was total pitch black. I mean, not the kind of darkness that we get accustomed to. We find little sources of light. Not even the kind of darkness in a hotel room where you close the blackout curtains. This is real darkness. God, it was amazing. It was just amazing. And as we looked at that, I thought, this is really what it's all about. This is really where we start from. And I thought of that line from Genesis: in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and God said, let there be light, and there was light. That's what it says in Genesis, and of course, if you don't believe in that, it can be nothingness before the Big Bang. Although, I will tell you, that's a cosmological conundrum I've had to talk about with my kids many times. How can there be nothing and then there's everything? It's a big question. I realize that our stories don't really begin with light. Our stories begin with dark. The dark is the real beginning. The dark is where the divine feminine fills us with life itself. The dark, whether it's the mother's womb or the realm of the unknowing, we need a dark path to begin life and find the light. We need to pass through the dark times of our lives in order to find a new way. Can you hear me? So I'd like you to turn to your neighbor. Here's the question: when did you travel through a dark time? We'll give ourselves about 4 minutes on this one. Here's the question. Turn to your neighbor. If you don't want to talk about that, talk about something else. So I'm always worried, as I should be, I'm always worried that you won't have anything to talk about, but that's the wrong thing to worry about. And I realize these are really loaded questions, and some of you don't want to answer them, and I completely understand. But I want us to grapple with this as the part of the story that we often don't begin with, and perhaps we should begin with. Because the ancients called this the via negativa, the dark way, as opposed to the via positiva, which is the way that most stories begin. The medieval mystics said that there's inside the story of our lives powerful inner understandings that we have yet to discover, that sometimes come out when we least expect them. The mystic Barbara Brown Taylor says that whether it's a seed in the ground or a baby in the womb or Jesus in the tomb, it all starts in the dark. To be human is to live by sunlight and moonlight with anxiety and delight, admitting limits and transcending them, falling down and rising up. To want a life with only half these things is to want a half a life, shutting the other half away so will not interfere with the bright fantasies of the way things ought to be, but rarely are. And we like to have happy stories. We're Americans, right? Yee-haw. But sometimes it's not all light. Sometimes it begins with darkness. We make the meaning out of our lives with the stories we tell, and sometimes those stories begin in darkness. Starting as children, of course, we yearn for the stories that have both the good and the bad. There's always that desire to have the struggle between the two. It's what makes a story a story. Despair is seeing no way that a story can end well, while hope is the yearning, indeed the expectation that it will prevail. And even at the end of our story, when it ends with death, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's the story of the lived life out of darkness into light and back to darkness that really matters. Why do I always start a sermon with a story, you ask me? So you remember what I said, at least till Monday, which I consider a huge accomplishment, because I don't remember what I said on Monday. The stories we remember, the stories we find meaning in, is where we will find ourselves. And this is also why I always want to know your story, and why I'm spending so much time this year, and thanks to the transition team for setting up all of these meetings with you, so I can learn your stories, because your stories are our stories. You're not just one individual that happens to show up on a Sunday morning. You are individuals who are all connected to a community that has its own story. And this is where I think poetry and art and music really come to play, because they also tell stories in ways other than words. I think of that beautiful, beautiful poem by Mary Oliver, who some consider to be the poet laureate of Unitarian Universalism. Mary Oliver, who says in Wild Geese, "Whoever you are, no matter how lonely the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things." Friends, with your story and all the twists and turns that holds meaning in your life, you are only just beginning to tell that story together in a place like this. Taking both the via negativa and the via positiva and putting them together, which is why the candles are so important to our liturgy. Why this ritual is not just a nicety that we do so we can stay connected. This actually speaks to the light in our lives. As I would often say at the end of the candles, I would say, we light the candles so our struggles will be shared and our joys enhanced. This is what it means to be part of a community. Our stories have everything to do with power. It is where we get our power. As Chris read in that beautiful reflective reading, it's impossible to talk about a single story without talking about power, because how you are in the world is a question of your agency and power. How they are told, who tells them, how many stories are told, are dependent on the power that we think we have in our lives. And as we live through the horror of this new war in Israel, I've been pondering stories that are informing the facts of the atrocities. Israelis indiscriminately murdered by Hamas gunmen, and Palestinians, not Hamas, who are suffering a complete siege of their forlorn territory. Someone shared a thought this week. I know many good Israelis who deserve a future. I know many good Palestinians who deserve a future. Let's not pick sides. Let's pick a solution. And then I ran across this in Facebook the other day from Eleanor Roosevelt, when she asked, when will our consciousness be so tender that we will act to prevent human misery rather than trying to avenge it? Today marks the death anniversary of Francis David, the founder of the Unitarian Church in Transylvania. I'm wearing this stole that was given to me by my previous partner church, also, of course, in Transylvania, with a name I could never pronounce. So I'm very glad to hear that yours is Varvalda, which I can pronounce. But I remember this, and we are going to be going on a beautiful pilgrimage, a chance to tell our story again to our friends and our partners, our co-religionists in Transylvania. We're going in July, and I hope some of you will join us. We'd really like families and children to come along. And I invite you to join us if for no other reason that we need to participate in the stories of the memory and the hope that this relationship and the perseverance of Unitarianism against terrible odds holds for us as a story of memory and hope rather than revenge and hatred. As Miss Adichie put it in the reflective reading, our stories and our capacity for storytelling are deeply rooted in our memories and imaginations. In this way, the power of now, this present moment, is fed by what was and what will be in the stories of our lives. And this capacity has been with us as long as we've had language to express it, from a lonely bard by a campfire to a story told on film. At the time of the cave visit, we had just welcomed an exchange student into our home, Mufe Shayo Ayodele, or Shayo for short. And her story mirrors Miss Adachi's. Shayo is Nigerian, born in Japan. Her father was part of the Nigerian Foreign Service. And by the time she came to live with us in Maryland, she lived in 3 countries by the time she was 12 years old. She went to the same school and graduated with our daughters from the Quaker school outside of Washington, D.C., and then went on to win a full scholarship at Dickinson College in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. Anybody Dickinson College alums here? Great school. Yeah, great school. But after a week at college, she called Frances and told her she'd gone into a restaurant in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, and they wouldn't serve her. Frances decided time to meet up and find out what's going on, so she drove up, not far from Frederick, Maryland, and went to the same diner, and there across the back behind the bar was a Confederate flag. And she pointed that and she said, "You see that, Shayo? That's a Confederate flag. And that means that this establishment believes that all Africans and all African Americans are second-class citizens. You don't know this because you weren't brought up here, but you're on the Nixon-Dixon line, and racism is still very much part of our story." Shayo went on to graduate from Dickinson College, and then the Rotary Club in town gave her a graduate scholarship to study at the London School of Economics, fully paid, where she graduated in international development. Stories, even fairly straightforward ones, are complicated by life, aren't they? We make assumptions about things based on the beginning of a story without really knowing the end. And in Shiloh's case, this was truly true there, because in Carlisle, while there were racists, or people acting in racist ways, there was also a Rotary Club of civic leaders that thought they saw great promise in this Nigerian woman who was in the United States. And today, Shiloh is the principal at the international nonprofit Leaders Quest, which leads system change initiatives with forward-looking corporations. And she is very much a part of our family. It's one of the reasons Francis and I go to England every July. She now has a wonderful son, another one on the way, and we refer to her lovingly as our Nigerian daughter. Stories have power. In fact, it's part of our DNA. Brian Swim and Mary Tucker wrote of this in their masterful story and their book, The Journey of the Universe. Storytelling is a cultural meme, a collective gene embedded in our DNA as Homo sapiens, and we've used symbols to create this storytelling and language. It's the wind under our wings. Symbols allow us, they wrote, to store the insights outside of ourselves in human culture. And as we unfold our story here at MLUC, this journey of transformation that I keep talking about, I want us to be aware of two things. And they're important because I've been hearing a little bit from some of you that I don't have a plan. And that's true. I actually don't have a plan in the biggest sense, but I have smaller plans, and these are all part of what I'm calling the journey into the liminal space. The space where we do a bit more wandering than we're used to, aren't we? This is a very successful congregation full of very successful people who have very successful strategic plans that they put into their lives and have in their daily time, their daily planners, and we're not going to do that. We're going to do something else. We're going to wander a bit. We're going to wander a bit and try different things and see how that plays out, because I'm sure that the structure, the vessel of this beautiful congregation will hold a little wandering. We will wander and try new things. And we will emerge, I believe, in this process a deeper, more engaged congregation than we have been before. Our story together will become stronger. The second thing I want you to remember is that our story here, or your personal story there, will best be served by exposing ourselves to new people and new ideas. Especially new people. People not like us. People that may not want to show up on a Sunday morning, and we'll have to find a different way to connect. But I want us to be thinking especially about those who have been marginalized by age, class, ethnicity, ability, gender, neurodivergence. If we're going to evolve our story as a congregation, or our story as Unitarian Universalists, we will have to do things differently than the way we did them in the past. Can you hear me? Yeah. As we crawled back out of that cave, I found myself recalling those immortal lines from the 23rd Psalm. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. I don't know. It's God that's helped me through all of this. I'm not even sure about God. I'm an enchanted agnostic with mystic tendencies. How about you? But here's the thing. Here's the thing. Regardless of what's carrying us through, it's not so much a jump in the dark as it is who's holding us up. Because even when we're down, there are people around you that will hold you up, that will carry you forward, or at the very least that will be there with you in the dark times and the good. My first and last foray into cave dwelling had taught me that my faith lay in the love of my family, the legacy of my religion, and the good hands and those who I've served with that reassure me that we are on the right path. We may begin in darkness, but we find our faith through the darkness, knowing that there is light awaiting for us. I'm so thankful for those guides. Some of you here are emerging as those guides again. Good guides keep us safe while giving us a chance to practice courage. We need a chance to practice courage, don't we? This is the difference between someone like me offering pastoral care or spiritual direction and all of you offering pastoral care and spiritual direction. Why? Because it's your story, and you should be held up by those of you who are around you that know you best. Or if you're new with us for the first time, just come and be fed, and we will get to know you and we will hold you up. However our stories unfold, we'll find greater meaning when we open ourselves up to people who are not like us. It's important for us to tell our story. It is important for us to yearn for the power of telling that story. And if you really want to know how to be the hit at a party, you all want to know how to do that? Go up to somebody and ask them their story. And then shut up. Just listen. They're going to find you the most interesting person at the party, even though you said nothing at all. Ken Wilber, one of my favorite philosophers, he said that if all we're concerned with is only our own story and our own self-improvement, then we might have missed the word. We might have missed the point. And in his words, he said, soul becomes our ego dressed in drag. Not that there's anything wrong with drag. Drag's great. We need a drag show here. That's what we need. Yeah. The kids were really quiet on the ride home from the caves. Clearly, this had been a deep and somewhat exhausting experience, especially for me. My youngest had scraped her hand, and I knew it would heal. Perhaps there'd be a scar that would tell her own story. And then I remembered that wonderful line by the poet and songwriter Leonard Cohen. And I had to look it up because he wrote that children show scars like medals. Lovers use them as a secret to reveal. The scar is what happens when the word is made flesh. We have those scars, don't we? Within and without, that has made our story flesh, that has made our lives rich and full to running over. So loved ones, beyond this time, beyond death and life and the space between the stars, we are here to live out a story. And it's that story that is yet to be fully told. So may it be, and amen. Our closing hymn is number 112, Do You Hear? I invite you to rise in body or spirit.
Away.
My friends, we listen to the stories of one another and of our own lives being told again and again so that we may find a way out of no way. Find a reason for us to be here. Find a reason for us to continue to change the world that is all around us and that needs a story told in a different key. That needs a story that is full of hope and not fear. So it may it be, for now the service truly begins. Please remain seated for the postlude.